Regular session on the date. Today is February 9th of the year 2021. And in accordance with resolution number 2020-0-20R, as the mayor, I have determined that conducting meetings of the city council with an anchor location such as the city council chambers or the administration conference room presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present there. I'll paraphrase a few of the findings. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention has stated that COVID-19 is an easily spread from person to person between people who are close in contact. Federal, state, and local authorities recommend that individuals limit public gatherings, wear face masks, and follow social distancing guidelines. It is difficult to anticipate the number of attendees at any meeting in order to maintain social distancing to comply with Utah health guideline levels. Further, regardless of the number of attendees, social distancing measures for council, staff, and attendees will be difficult to maintain in the city council chambers and the admin building. COVID-19 continues to pose an immediate threat to the health, safety, and welfare of American Fork City residents. American Fork City can provide a way for the public to hear and view open more portions of the city council meeting and to provide a way for the public to participate in the meeting. On the agenda in front of us is the links associated with and those times periods to set out. And we do have an anchor location right now for public comment as well, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So we will follow the agenda as outlined. It has been posted. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we will have an invocation by Councilmember Taylor, and then I will conduct the roll call. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice and freedom for all.
Our Father in heaven, as we bow our heads and come before thee this night at our city council meeting, we are grateful for the opportunity to gather, if even virtually, and the opportunity to conduct the business of our great city. We are grateful, Father in heaven, for this country in which we live, for the freedoms that we enjoy, and we pray for this great nation. We pray for all of our leaders. We pray for the unity that we so desperately need. We pray that thou would strengthen us to be willing to serve, to overlook weaknesses, and to strive to put those things into effect that would make our city even better place to live and to do business. We thank thee for all those who serve our city in the capacity of public safety, and ask that thou would watch over and continue to bless and strengthen them. We thank thee for our administration and employees, which give such valuable time to help serve the citizens of this wonderful city. We are grateful for all that we have been given and pray for decorum and civility and strength as we conduct the affairs of the city this night. And we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'll now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Christiansen.
Here.
Councilmember Shelton.
Here.
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Okay, item number 2, we have set aside for a public comment period. We have an anchor location at City Hall. Tara Lynn, is there anybody present there to make a comment?
No, we have no one here at City Hall right now.
Okay. Have we received any public comment virtually, the Zoom link?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to item number 3, City Administrator's Report. David Bunker.
Mayor, I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Christiansen.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shelton.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Barnes.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Carroll.
Hold on, I'm stuck a little bit. Okay. Couldn't get back to the right screen. I was looking something up. Thank you, Mayor Frost. I did just want to report a couple of things. One is I had a meeting this afternoon with the principal of Deerfield Elementary. And if you didn't know, or if you recall, Deerfield provided, they requested a crosswalk on the American Forks side of the neighborhood that accesses Deerfield. And the city painted the crosswalk or repainted the crosswalk and installed flashers that they provided. And she just wanted me to pass on her gratitude and that she has received multiple comments from everybody who lives in that south neighborhood that has to cross that street. So I wanted to pass that on as kind of some good news and some kudos to our city staff that it's being noticed by the residents of our city and is most appreciated. The other thing I wanted to mention is tomorrow is the Chamber of Commerce's annual awards and installation luncheon. And this is where they announce the business of the year and the new business of the year, and mayor picks a business of the year and a couple of other things, as well as formally installing the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. And that's it. That's all I have to report.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Nothing to report this evening, Mayor.
Okay. For item number 5 on the mayor's report, we had a couple ribbon cuttings since our last meeting. The first one is, it's called the Lynx Club. If you like to golf, you need to check this place out. It was pretty amazing. It's using technology and it has the ability to not only to improve your golf game but to be analyzed through a really innovative computer data system. It's near, I can just say near Amazon because that can put it on the map. I mentioned this to 2 son-in-laws. They both have passes already. So it's unique that it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's fun. Had another one today, Valley View Insurance. They're just north of the Desert Industries, an all-state insurance broker that moved from Spanish Fork to American Fork. And it was a really nice little ribbon cutting, a lot of family support, and the chamber just came out in force to show their support. I think it's worth mentioning that each Monday I am on a call with all the mayors of Utah County, the county commissioners, and the Utah County Health Director. And it's kind of taken a really different narrative as of recently due to the vaccine. And that vaccine efforts and what they're doing there, we will be communicating similar patterns throughout the entire county as things change, as levels of age groups. What is 70 and older, it will soon be 65 and older, and then other underlying health conditions. But as they were thinking of places they might have mobile sites that people could, they could set up a big tent and leave it there for a sustained period of time. I threw out the idea of using the equestrian park as one of those places that was centrally located and that could be considered to be used as well. We were just kind of brainstorming, but it's encouraging when we think of what this pandemic is doing that there's a lot of vaccinations that are taking place. And I really appreciate the county and their efforts to be out ahead of this and trying to anticipate the numbers of people. They bolstered their staff to take phone calls. They've updated computer systems to be able to handle a massive load. And I feel like the county is working well with in the vaccines. So one thing I learned from key staff today too, I think it's worth noting, is that yesterday our fire department had 21 calls. And so COVID is still very prevalent and they're moving people from the hospital or moving into the hospital. but they were nonstop, 21 calls yesterday for our emergency personnel. And that is it for the mayor's report. Carolyn?
Yes, Mayor, we had two gentlemen show up who'd like to make comment for the public comment period.
Okay, let's let them in.
Okay,
If you would have them state their name and then just limit the comments to 2 to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Seth Worthen. I'm a resident of American Fork, and I have been doing some research, and I found out that American Fork has an ordinance against short-term rentals. I was wondering if there's a reason behind that, and maybe provide some discussion on the benefits of short-term rentals and maybe how it could benefit the city by charging a lodging tax that could bring some revenue in for the city, maybe to help with the roads. But I really just want to understand from the city council why they feel short-term rentals should be banned or prohibited in American Fork.
Seth, I'll just state, if you would leave your information with Tara Lynn,
Okay,
we will do a follow-up call to you, and we will inform you and engage in a discussion, and some of the, and we can even have minutes that would kind of point you to the discussions that we had when we came to that ordinance and to the conclusion and the purpose as to why.
okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, if you would, Carolyn, make sure you get proper information, phone number, email address, things like that. Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Mark Allen from Protect and Preserve American Fork Canyon. I didn't expect to have an empty house. I wanted to come over and shake some hands or bump some elbows, but appreciate the opportunity to speak. The last time I spoke in public, I had to be a big hammer. And I'm really grateful that I needed a little pick me up today. So I came over here to my favorite city where you guys shine with transparency and you lead out. You're leading out on a legacy project. You helped with Mayor Hadfield back to Protect and Preserve American Fork Canyon. You came on board with the resolution to help with Bridal Veil Falls. And now you're leading out once again to help preserve open space for those that don't have voice, for my kids, my grandkids. I'm most grateful. Thank you for the resolution, and I would encourage the city councils of Highland as well as Lehigh to lockstep with you. I think there's other options to where to put a recreation center. The developer called me, and I love his idea. It's just on the wrong piece of land. And I'd love to see a working group formed between the cities and some of the horsemen to better utilize the facility. I've talked to the county sheriff. He's got interest in a canine park. I think you could do an ethical dog handling, host a national event, and help show our support for law enforcement, but also generate a lot of revenue. And while showing our support for ethical law enforcement. So just want to say thank you for all you do. This is appreciated that you'll lead out. Thanks for the call, Rob Shelton. And one of the things I really appreciate is your agenda packet. I wish the county would follow suit so that the citizens could read between the lines and understand the business that it's at hand. So with that, I'm going to go back home and I'll watch you vote. And I'm going to toilet paper houses if anybody votes against it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. Anybody else, Carolyn?
no,
Okay.
that's,
All right. Before we move on to the common consent agenda, I would just reference that packet as Mr. Allen has explained that as we move through all these items, there's a lot of information, but the city council has that in their hands in advance so they can review it. They can ask questions of staff or anybody appropriate that's in the packet so they can get to information that is necessary to make good and wise decisions. So appreciate staff for making that available to all of us. Now move on to the common consent agenda consisting of the 7 items that are before us. We have one item of the minutes that has needed correction. Which one of those minutes is there? Is it, Teralyn?
It is on the January 19th work session minutes. It's when they're talking about the road fee. So page 7, line 38. It should be they were appealing, but we're not sure they would prevail. We had in there repealing instead of appealing.
Okay, that's a big word. That's a big difference. Thank you. All right, any questions on the common consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move approval of the common consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to the action items. Item number 1 is a review and action on an agreement with Harrington Center for the Arts for the summer concert series. We were expecting that perhaps one of the applicants would be here. Let's see, Sherilyn, do you want to just give us a summary of this?
Yes, so when the city stopped, so we used to do these summer concert series. The city no longer does that concert series. Harrington has stepped up and wants to essentially take over that series. We've seen park funds awarded for that. One of the pieces of this is that they'd like to Cove, and in exchange with that, the city has some marketing that they would like to have done with the Steel Days concert. So essentially, this would be an agreement where the city would allow Harrington to use Quail Cove free of charge. In return, Harrington will advertise and market the Steel Days concert for the city on the city's behalf.
Any questions for the council? We have Spencer and Marissa, according to that are here. Any questions for legal or for the Harrington Foundation?
The one question I had is it says Steel Days concert. I didn't know if that was referring to the big show or to the orchestra concert or both, or what that was referring to.
Spencer, can you speak to that? I think I know what it is, but I think it's good. It's a good definition to make sure we understand it.
Yes, traditionally Steel Days has been kicked off with a Monday night concert at Quail Cove or the amphitheater. So that would be the concert that they're referring to.
Yeah. I'm guessing that promotion is just like we've done in the past, where it's, you're doing a few ahead of time and you're promoting it and saying, hey, this is another concert. They'll be here at Quail Cove type thing. Is that what we envision that being?
Correct. So we plan on doing a little bit more marketing that has happened previously. And so we would include the Steel Days concert in that overall marketing campaign as one of, so we would produce 5 and the Steel Days concert would be a 6th, kind of in the middle of that series.
Awesome. And then do we anticipate, I'm kind of lost on the park tax side of things. Is there park tax attached with this from previous years that would go along with this?
So I'll address that. So park tax was awarded to Harrington for the concerts previously. So I just mentioned that the park tax funding has nothing to do with this contract. I was just indicating that that's kind of been funded. It's a series that they've already previously received park tax for.
Gotcha. And so I assume then, Spencer, are you guys looking to take an application? Because sometimes we run into that problem where we approve it too late for you guys to get people lined up, because if we're approving it in May and you got a concert in June type thing. So do you see a need for park tax funds to fulfill some of this, or are you not seeing any need for those funds?
Because this is envisioned as a free public concert, we anticipate that park tax funds would be a large part of the revenue ongoing. We had carryover from COVID, and the concerts didn't start last year, but they're starting this summer. So we have sufficient funding for this summer. So our request for park funds would be for next summer in its entirety.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the agreement with Harrington Center for the Arts for the summer concert series.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote, and I am recommendation from council. We're going to change the voting pattern a little bit. So I have not forgotten you, Councilmember Christiansen, because I'm not going to start with you. So Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
I'm going to change that up a little bit better next time. So, okay, item number 2, review and action of a pioneering agreement with VHD LLC for system improvements along 570 West. Any questions for engineering, for planning? Again, I think we've seen enough of these come through with our city developing out a little bit that it's straightforward. If there's any specifics, Scott's our man.
The question I just had is on the Christensen piece there. I think this is the famous Christensen brothers that we've talked about in the past, and I know they've always said they're never going to develop, and so I didn't know if this had any impact that they need to join in on this, or is this developer representing that? I just saw that in the breakout of costs and the improvements.
So the way that this would work is if that land is developed within that time period stated in the agreement, and I believe it's 10 years, if the property is developed in that time, then they would be responsible for that portion. If they don't develop in that time, that's a risk that the developer of Estates at Fenn Farms, that's a risk that they're taking, that land will be developed. If it doesn't get developed, then they don't get that reimbursement.
Okay.
I believe Wayne said in a past meeting that, I don't know whether it was hell would freeze over or what would exactly happen before the Christensen brothers would ever give up the farm. So that will be interesting.
I just worry about that road width in that area there. As it develops around that, it'll be very unique. I know we tried to shift the road a little more to the west, and then that wasn't fair, so we brought it back. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to double check on that when they were on here. Didn't know if they had a change of heart or if they hadn't. So thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the pioneering agreement with VHD LLC for system improvements along 570 West.
A motion by Councilmember Taylor,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes,
Yeah. Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
And this kind of puts me in a hardship because I like to see how Barbara votes, but I'll go ahead and say aye.
Councilmember Christiansen,
Just think about the power it gives me. But I'm going to say aye also.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 3 is a review and action on an agreement with AF Utah LLC regarding 200 South public improvements. Any questions for Scott?
Mayor, if I could, I just want to confirm that there were a couple of minor changes made to this with regard to making sure all of the parties were a party to the agreement. I just want to confirm that that is the version that council has and is intending to move on this evening.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Terry Lynn can address whether or not that updated version was sent out to council and
We're on version 4.3A.
I did not get that sent out, but Vindeline does have that and he's pulled up the correct one. It's just
Perfect.
adding in the additional organization.
Vendeline, could you scroll to the signature block so that the council can see who the parties would be?
So the additional party added was AF Utah. And the reason for that was that AF Utah is still technically the owner of that property. So we wanted to make sure that both the property owner and the developer were in agreement with the terms.
So I guess-
Nothing was changed in the body of the agreement, correct?
Not that I'm aware of. I guess I should confirm that, David, the correct version was sent to council, correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then no, the only thing that was added was the
Just the signature.
signature block.
So I guess who's the developer then? You said you added Utah AF or AF Utah LLC. Is that the only signer with the city then?
There should be one more signer on there.
That should be Castlewood Homes.
Yeah, I don't see it on there either.
I apologize for that. I did that quickly this afternoon. They are listed in the first portion of the agreement.
Can you go up to the opening of this? So the agreement is between Castlewood Development and AF Utah LLC in American Fork City.
Thank you.
So in the motion, if council would just, if your intent is to approve it, just on condition that we add Castlewood Development as a signatory to the agreement.
Any other questions?
I'll go ahead and make the motion then to move to approve the agreement with Utah or AF Utah LLC regarding 200 South public improvements and authorize the mayor to execute the documents with the condition to add Castlewood AF Apartments as a signatory and part of the agreement as well.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm not sure what that word is at the end of the first line under suggested motion. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I just spotted it.
Regarding.
I get it.
I was wondering how to say it. Thanks, Barbara.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll make that change. All right, I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Item number 4 is a review and action on the resolution indicating the city's intent to annex the ABF property. Annexation consisting of 9.47 acres at approximately 300 west and 100 south.
1,000.
1,000. Thank you, Barbara.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the resolution indicating the city's intent to annex the ABF property annexation consisting of 9.47 acres at approximately 300 west and 100 south.
I have a motion by
1,000 south.
1,000 south.
we don't do
Second.
we don't do the checkbook at our house. Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye. Man, this really keeps you on your toes.
It does.
Switching up there. What? Oh, yeah, that's me.
Okay, item number 5 is the review and action on a resolution indicating the city's intent to annex the GYZT property annexation consisting of 6.49 acres at approximately 700 south and 100 west.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the resolution indicating the city's intent to annex the GWZT property annexation consisting of 6.49 acres at approximately 700 south and 100 west.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
All right, item number 6 is a review and action on an ordinance approving an amendment to the Interblock Cottage Development Overlay Map to include property located at 440 South and 100 East. This has been before us a few times. Adam, why don't you just give us a little overview, and I think we're going to maybe talk about some correction.
The request to include this in the interblock overlay has not been before you. What you did have before you before was a zone change request, which was turned down, and so the applicant is coming forward with a request to include this property within that interblock cottage overlay area. As you can see, the properties to the north and east are included. This one is not, and so he's asking that it be included. The underlying zone remains at R2 7500, but he now, if this is approved, he would have the option to develop under the interblock cottage overlay. The Planning Commission felt it was a valid request and they recommended approval.
All right, any questions?
I really like this a lot better than the fourplexes. I feel like the single family homes really give it much more of a community feel. There was one done just a block north of this, I think the Riverbend Road, and it turned out really, really well as well. So I'm glad they kind of came up with this and very supportive of this development here and extending that map to include that overlay. The only concern that I had was the right-of-way on the frontage of 100 East. And so I would just ask that we make the approval of that overlay contingent upon that right-of-way being worked out with city staff in an agreement. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the ordinance approving an amendment to the interblock cottage development overlay map to include the property located at 440 South, 100 East, contingent upon the landowner and the city coming to an agreement on the right-of-way on 100 East due to the change in the type of development that could be occurring there.
So I will second that, but Rob, can you give me a little clarity on your concern?
Yeah, you bet. So we're looking to expand 100 East.
East, right?
And typically when we do these types of projects, we would want to take that opportunity to work with the landowner to negotiate what that right of way would look like. And so I think that, and I feel that this would be the appropriate time to do that. I had a chance to talk with Scott and Adam and Sherlyn just prior to this meeting about those concerns, and they're welcome to jump in anytime they'd like and chat about it as well. But I think now would be the appropriate time to be able to look to try to work out that right of way issue.
Perhaps I can add a little bit more to that. Because this is a requested change from the applicant and not the city looking to expand this overlay zone on its own, the city has the ability to essentially work with the applicant to receive the necessary right-of-way. The road that is expected to be necessary for this area has been master planned to be greater than a local road. And so now would be the time for the city to secure that right of way prior to them getting the overlay expansion. So a motion to make that overlay expansion contingent upon working out the dedication of that right of way would be appropriate so that we can secure that. And the developer also has the understanding today that as long as we can work out that agreement for the dedication of right of way, then they can move forward with their plans pursuant to the ordinances governing interblock cottages.
So Cheryl Ann, are you saying that they are aware of this, or is this going to be new to them as this addition about the right of way? I mean, it should be, I realize that, but is it? Are they on the call?
I can't speak to that. As Councilmember Shelton.
I am on the call.
Okay. Perhaps they can speak to that.
Jared, is that Jared? Okay.
Yes, I'm the applicant.
Okay. All right, Jared. So are you aware of this?
I have actually talked to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Well enough? Okay, so I have spoken with Ben Sorensen. Is it Ben Sorensen in the engineering department?
Ben Hunter.
Am I wrong there?
Ben Hunter.
Ben Hunter. Okay, Ben Hunter, sorry. So I've spoken with him previously, and he recommended that the city actually wanted 10 feet of the property. And so I've already got that accounted for. There's a question I would have, and that is whether or not the landowner would need to dedicate that property before a subdivision approval. Because you're asking, according to I can't remember her name, the councilwoman that just spoke was saying that it was going to be, map amendment was going to be contingent on the property being dedicated to the city, or an agreement being worked out to dedicate it to the city.
Correct. Sherilyn, maybe you can clarify that for him. Sherilyn is our legal counsel.
So
okay, thank you.
So similar to like a zone change where we would approve a zone change contingent upon the dedication of right of way, that's essentially what we would be asking for here is that the overlay would be expanded upon dedication of that right of way, essentially, once that agreement can be worked out. As for the timing of it, it can be done ahead of time, but it can also be done depending on the time frame of them moving their plans through. We could essentially do it at that time as well.
And Jared, I had a chance to talk with Matt Blackhurst about this ahead of time, so I apologize. I didn't know who the applicant was, but as a landowner, talked with him. He seemed to kind of understand, and the idea here was to kind of give you the green light that, hey, you know, the interblock cottages could happen so long as we get that agreement worked out. Talked with Scott Sensenbauer in Public Works, and he mentioned that would be something that they could turn around relatively quickly, and legal felt that they could get that turned around pretty quickly for you as well. So kind of giving you the green light that we're 90% there, but let's just get that agreement done and then push this across the line, if that makes sense.
And along with that, Jared, you don't need to come back to one of these boring meetings.
Does it need to go back through planning commission at all, or is this total final?
No.
Not the question of the overlay.
So one question I would have is, for example, if for some reason this land does not get developed right away, would you hold the owner hostage on that? Well, on the map amendment. So I'm just wondering, his fence line is probably 10 feet into the road right away, future road right of way. So what would happen between now and when the city actually took on the project to widen the road? Would he still be able to use that land, or would it just be, would he have to move his fence right away? Or when it actually got developed or improved?
I'll jump in here, Jared, and just take a stab at that. I think those are all things that could be negotiated as part of that agreement. And that was part of the reason of that contingency, is allowing the owner and the city to sit down and in good faith and negotiate those details out. better understanding what those timelines are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it could be that it happens in the next couple months. So,
Right.
and then everything is done. As one thing, as long as the 10-foot right of way, the 10 feet of property works very well with the subdivision. I mean, for an interblock subdivision, it worked out really well with the average lot being 66,000 square feet. It flats out almost to 6,100 per lot, and they're almost all at the exact same size. So to ask for more of that, there's not very much wiggle room, but there might be a little bit more wiggle room, but not much as far as the 10-foot right of or extra space the city wants.
And
I think that's just trying to put it in alignment with the underpass.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'd rely upon staff and their expertise and negotiating and just having that collaborative conversation to see what could be worked up versus holding up the whole thing and having you guys come back. I just would feel much more comfortable with that contingency that could be worked out, hopefully relatively quick.
Okay, that is fine. Appreciate it.
Any more questions, comments?
Mayor, if I could jump in, we will update the map. We just realized the wrong triangle is highlighted, so we'll give you the correct one for you to sign. It's actually just south and east of what's depicted on the map.
Okay. I think we all have it in our head and know where it's at, but so, okay. All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Taylor on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Item number 7 is a review and action on an ordinance adopting amendments to section 17.7, 17.12, and 15.01 of the American Fork City Municipal Code with addressing transportation facilities. Scott, I'm going to give you some time.
I can introduce this, Mayor. What this does, this amendment is really done to provide clarification and consistency as it applies to alleys and drive aisles. So the definition of alley itself will now be consistent where it is addressed in the code. And then also we are adding a definition of drive aisle as well as a standard for that and where those are applicable. And so really this could be considered a housekeeping item in that it makes consistent the definition of alley and it adds the definition of drive aisle and where those can be used. And then the standards themselves are being updated to reflect those changes for consistency.
Thank you for that. Is there any questions?
Just a quick question, definition wise, what really is the difference between the two? I got a little confused in a couple of places.
The difference between a drive aisle and an alley essentially is that an alley, a drive aisle would be more like a road on one lot. So if you have one large lot with a number, kind of think of like an apartment complex. The road through an apartment complex, by definition, it's not a parking lot. It's not an alleyway. We didn't have a definition for that type of a road. So that's what a drive aisle would be. It would be the travel way between lots or between units on one lot, the backside of multiple lots. But we simply just didn't have a definition for essentially a private street on one lot. And that's what a drive aisle is now.
Are they allowed to park on that at all?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, the spec for the drive aisle is the same. I believe, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but the drive aisle and the alley are actually the same spec. It really comes down to definitions of that drive aisle being a travel way on a single lot of land.
Just a single lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do have another question. I don't know how to refer to this. It says alley cross section. It's on page 62 of our packet. That one, yeah. It's showing, are we, is this a new cross section that we are approving, or is this part of our standard?
This is not a new cross section.
So our alleys right now have 32 feet of asphalt on them.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, Scott, chime in if I'm wrong, but I believe what we did with this was simply change it to be the specification for alleys and drive aisles instead of just.
That's correct. I think there are some special cases in the TOD where things are a little different, but for non-TOD, that is absolutely correct.
Scott, was this modified when we looked at our street cross sections a few years ago?
This particular cross section, David, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, it was. I'm pretty sure it was, and it became this as we did that recently.
Yeah.
So I was also, so I know this sounds stupid, but this is how they're being built right now. This is the cross section that's in the code for the alleys.
Correct.
Okay.
Except in the TOD, I believe the TOD is different.
Right, yeah. That cross section is below. Okay, so here is another question I have. If you scroll up to the text, Vendeline, and we're looking at the definition of an alley. It says it's a narrow drive aisle, which, by the way, that's weird to define an alley as a drive aisle when we also have a drive. Anyway,
that's why I got confused.
A narrow drive aisle primarily for vehicular service access to the back or side of properties, otherwise abutting on another street, common area, or public space. I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms here. But I'm wondering if we need to have some sort of defining the frontage as the front of requiring some sort of public access on the frontage if they have an alley is basically what I'm wondering.
I believe we have that elsewhere in the code, don't we, Adam?
We probably do. But what this allows is, so it allows, like, in the planned community zone, for instance, if you have units that are accessed from an alley, but they front on an open space, similar to what we allow in the TOD, that's what this clarifies.
Okay.
That was not a dumb question, Councilmember Carroll. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make that motion. Move to approve the ordinance adopting amendments to section, hang on, I gotta move something. Shoot. To section 17.7, 17.12, and 15.01 of the American Fork City Municipal Code, which address transportation facilities.
A motion by Councilmember Barnes.
A second.
Second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 8 is a review and action on an ordinance creating section 15.01.1445 to the American Fork City Municipal Code, a new detail for street coordinate signs. Scott, I'm going to put you on the spot on this one.
Certainly. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what we have before you is actually, this is creating a new detail where it's actually kind of surprising, but one doesn't exist today that really describes for developers or even the city, anyone constructing new signs like this, what the details should look like and what it should be included. For the most part, we've kind of given direction and things have been built properly, and I don't have any concerns with things that have been installed, but we felt after talking with several developers that it would be beneficial just to clarify in code in this detail what they and we have already been doing. And so that's essentially what we have before you on this item, and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Quick question there, Scott. Do we need to do one that also includes a sidewalk, curb, gutter combo versus a park strip?
Good question.
And I'm happy to approve this now, but I just wondered if we need to have that variation as well.
Let me look, can I look into that and get back to you on that?
Sure.
Just check on and see if this covers it, and if not, we can bring that back as in addition to this.
God, I notice it says it states that the square tube is 2 inches by 2 inches by 12 feet. Right there.
Right, yes.
So is 12 feet the total length of the pipe? Do we have, what I'm getting to is, do we have something that states the height of the stop sign itself?
Well,
so that they're somewhat consistent throughout the city.
You mean that
how high the sign is? I don't care about the pole or the signs above it. I'm concerned that stop signs are consistent.
Good point. So it's not shown on here, but it is, there is a national standard, part of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices does say that. And so maybe what we should do, I always like to say things in one place and one place only. So it might be something that we may want to just reference.
So that's the question. Is there some place where it is stated?
I'm guessing that note 1 underneath those notes would be there.
Yeah, note 1 will, well, good catch. Note 1 will cover that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it does. And then,
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
it's
awesome.
7B. Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
There are other things that are in the MUTCD that will cover these things. So essentially what we're asking you is stuff that is not really covered. What this does is stuff that's not necessarily covered by the MUTCD that we feel makes sense locally. And again, it's what kind of everyone's doing and been doing and works for everybody.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the ordinance approving section 15.01.1445 relating to street coordinate signs.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Christiansen,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Item number 9 is a review and action on an ordinance amending section 15.01.1420 of the American Fork City Municipal Code related to fire hydrants. Scott, I'm going to give it back to you.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll put in a plug for this one.
Oh.
Come on.
Oh, nice.
Work with me.
Nice.
Getting
So
hard.
I know. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what this item is clarifying a few things and making a few small tweaks to this that we think there's been some questioning on some items. I'm happy to get into the details of these individual items if you want, but we showed the highlighted in your packet and on the agenda what the changes are. So really it's some clarification more than anything where there's been some questions. But again, if you've got questions and want to get into some more of the details, I'd be happy to do so.
I have. Go ahead.
I didn't say not necessarily a question, or maybe it is a question, a comment, not on the changes, but, and Scott, we've talked about this before, painting the curbs red. I have that vision of Alice in Wonderland, painting the roses red song kind of come to mind a little bit here. And I know we've talked about this back and forth. And I noticed on the drawing, it has curb painted red. I've talked with all the other council members about this. One thing I think that would be helpful is I know that it could be a financial burden to the city to paint all those curbs red. But I think that if we could have some kind of policy that if we've got a resident that's got a can of red paint and he's willing to paint it to the standards of the city and go for it to help with public safety, I'd be for that. So just throwing that out there.
Counselor, can I ask you, where is it? I'm trying to look and see where
It's on your rendering, on both renderings, I guess, page 74 of the packet.
Okay, I'm there.
And if you look, it just says curb painted red and it points right to the curb.
I'm looking at it. I must not be seeing it. Sorry, Vendolin, you're the master where you've got this over here. Oops. Okay, well, that's a mistake on our part. My recommendation has been and will be and will always be that we actually don't paint curbs red. I'd like to be consistent, and we either need to paint all the curbs red in the city and require all developers to do so, which we've not been doing, or we should do none of them. In my opinion, we just need to be consistent. I am sorry, this one slipped through and I missed it, and I do apologize to y'all, but I would actually like to take that out and fix that. So that's not on there in terms of painting it red. My feeling on it is it's a maintenance item, and if for some reason we miss one somewhere, we better have a good reason why we're being inconsistent. And again, my professional opinion to you would be to not paint the curbs red, but we'll defer to the council on that.
In the past, we sent the council some information regarding the annual cost of what it would cost to paint the curbs red and then maintain them. And really it's the maintenance. And I appreciate residents who want to paint it, but one resident may want to paint it and then they move, and the next resident who moves into that home may think, I'm not painting it. That's the city's job to paint that. And then who maintains that section of red curb from there forward? And they can look pretty scraggly. I've seen red curbs throughout cities look pretty unmaintained. And so that's why I think Scott's concern about the maintenance and the cost that it would be to the city is valid. However, if the council wants the curbs painted red and maintained, then we can put that cost in the budget and move forward.
I don't know if it has to be an all or none, just personally as long as I've lived in the city, I've seen curbs painted red and I've seen curbs not painted red. And I don't know if we've ever had litigation over it or anything of that nature. But if someone's saying, gosh, I'd like to, we've had a parking issue here, I'd like to give a visual to help people understand that they shouldn't be parking here, and they're willing to pay for it, I don't see why that would be a problem. We look down at Beehive Ball Field, we've got a lot of red paint everywhere to help people understand, because there's a lot of parking going on when those ball games are happening, to help people understand, a quick, easy visual where they're allowed to park and where they're not. But just my thought.
Usually everyone who sees those, they immediately stop parking there. That red paint is like a nail strip.
I think you have different degrees of people who will blatantly do it and some that won't. But I think that if it's something that a resident feels passionate about and they've got a can of red paint and they're willing to go out there and the city says, here's the specifications and we can do it. I do take that back. There was one litigation issue where the curb wasn't painted red, but then became painted red, and then the city got sued over it. But that wasn't with the fire hydrant. That was with the no parking sign on Main Street. But I don't know, just food for thought.
I'm not opposed to, if there's special parking situations that are not by hydrants. I mean, to me, it's a different story. My concern is really in front of hydrants where it's already clearly against the law. Everybody knows it. We all know, we take the test when we get our driver's license. You're not allowed to park in front of a fire hydrant, and it's clear how many feet. I'm just worried if we start being inconsistent on something like that, you know, that's where cities and public works departments really get into trouble, is say, well, we're gonna paint certain neighborhoods but not others. And it sends a message I'm really concerned about. You know, maybe there is a litigation, I don't know. But I would err on the side of caution and be consistent, whatever that choice may be.
So it would appear to me that if we, in making this motion, we determine whether we remove that from the exhibit, correct? Is that, Sherilyn, would you recommend that we do that? At least in referring to the curb painted red?
If, well, yes, there really does need to be a decision made, because if you want to adopt this and remove that curb painted red portion, then that would be your motion tonight. So there kind of, I guess, does have to be a decision on that as well.
Okay.
That is my recommendation.
Okay.
Well, I mean, even from what Rob was saying, we would still remove it because it wouldn't be a requirement of the developer at that point.
Correct.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead, Barbara.
I was just going to say, what about the inconsistency about the curbs that are already painted red? Is there a problem there of some confusion or anything there?
Well, so there, in my opinion, there could be, and it's something that I would look to, you know, prioritize appropriately. This isn't a dire emergency, but I would like to fix that and remedy that.
Some of our red curbs that are painted are also consistent with ordinances that have been adopted previously. And some are around school zones. So there's been some, I'm not saying it's been wholly consistent, but there is some explanation for why some curbs have been painted red and others haven't. One thing to kind of keep in mind, and I don't know that it necessarily impacts this conversation too much, but I would be reluctant to put it in the hands of property owners to paint their curbs. You may have some overzealous property owners at that point, and we wouldn't have control over, you know, were they, I mean, it would create a situation of were they given permission or were they not given permission? And one property owner may see their neighbor doing it and think that they have the right to do it as well. So I think it does create some confusion on that end.
And just to clarify, where I'm saying I'd like to remedy the inconsistencies, I am speaking solely about in front of fire hydrants. I'm not talking about there may be other special, in fact, I'm going to say there are other special cases in the city where we may want to, for whatever reason, paint a curb red that is completely not associated with any fire hydrant. But for in front of fire hydrants, my recommendation is let's be consistent. And whichever way we go, let's be consistent. And my recommendation would be to not have them painted red.
I'm in open too big of a box, but I think that, to your point, Sherilyn, with overzealous citizens, we've already had that where we had one in front of Forbes that went out and painted the street one way on there with a spray can. So I don't know if this does or does not stop overzealous citizens. I think that those that have the right heart and mind, it gives them an option to be able to do it. I'd rather have the developer paint them red, and then the maintenance is up to, you know, if someone else wants to come in and fix that red paint, great, let them do it. My house has a fire hydrant right in front of it. And, you know, Clark, to your point, people come to visit my house, they don't park in front of the red spot. They go right to the end of the red spot and then they stop. So I look at that and I say, you know, it does provide a visual, but whatever the council wants to do, you know, we can move forward on it.
You know,
comments.
Go ahead, Councilman Barnes.
If I may, I think I spoke with David about this. State Street, we've had a business owner that felt he should be able to paint in front of his business red. And so sometimes these overzealous people that want to protect their property or feel they're entitled to it for some reason think they can just go out and paint it red. And he painted, it wasn't a 5-foot strip. It was a pretty good sized strip. So Rob mentioned one there, and those things do happen. I've got a question between this first diagram that we're seeing and the next one down that I'm seeing on the updated packet, where the colors have been added to it. So there's no wording in the yellow box or the green boxes.
There is.
There is on my computer.
Wondering why it's not, if it's some computer glitch, because there is.
Doesn't the color, isn't that supposed to represent a change when it's colored?
Yeah, these are changed, correct. These are either changes or additions. And I don't know why the wording's not showing up on the screen, because it is on the packet that
it is. And so the reason I bring this up is because I know of one fire hydrant of these new ones that were put on 700 North, and the supplier sent down a fire hydrant that wasn't an approved fire hydrant. And that was just recently removed, and an approved one was put in there. So it does happen, and the city looked at that, and it had to be replaced. My observation is on that top square on the right where it says the brands, when I look on my computer, the wording is exactly the same. It doesn't look, Scott, to me like it's been changed. And I've looked pretty darn close at it. And I've looked at a couple of the others, and they look, I haven't looked at them as close, but they all look pretty similar to me, the ones I've looked at, which is about 3 of them. So somebody help me out.
No, you're right, Counselor. A couple of them don't.
Those 3 brands are the same.
They are.
The commas are the same. Everything looks the same to me.
Counselor, I don't have an answer for you as to why then they're highlighted.
I mean, is there a problem?
Well, my problem is and I understand, no, to me, there's not a problem in a way, but my problem is if you tell me you're changing something and it looks exactly the same, then I get confused.
Counsel, I'm going to maybe, hopefully this will be acceptable to you, but you're asking some pretty good questions and some things. And I'm wondering if you would consider a request for me to maybe table this. Let me go back.
I was going to offer that, Scott. I honestly was, just because of the confusion.
Yeah. I think if you'd be willing to let me go back and do a little more digging as to what the issue is here and why I'm seeing some things here. This is, I do apologize to you for this.
I didn't want to be a hard case, so
No,
I'm glad you brought it up first.
Okay.
Good questions.
So
go ahead and make that motion, Councilmember Barnes.
Well, I would make a motion to table the discussion of this ordinance 15.01.1420 and have the city staff go back and look at it and bring back some additional information or clarification, however it needs to be worded.
Okay. The motion by Councilmember Barnes.
I'll second with just a quick comment. We talked about overzealous citizens. Just one more quick note. There is a home occupational business that put no parking signs in front of the public street to try to make that for their business. So I think that no matter what we do, sometimes you just can't stop zealous people.
You can't win, yeah.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Barnes, second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? This is to table this item. I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen.
I'm unmuting. Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
okay, made a note of that. Okay. Item number 9 is a review and action on a resolution supporting the North Utah County Equestrian Center. I will read that resolution and we can discuss it. This is resolution number 2021-02-06. A resolution in support of the preservation and continued operations of the North Utah County Equestrian Park. Whereas the Utah County is in cooperation with state agencies and local municipalities developed a 37-acre North Utah County Equestrian Park. Whereas the park received financial support from the state of Utah, Utah County, surrounding municipalities and other institutions, in addition to donations and contributions of time and material by local jurisdictions and residents. Whereas the park has been in operation since 2001, providing access to equestrian facilities, open space areas, trails, and park amenities, including an unmatched natural environment for the benefit of the residents of the county. And whereas the park is a regional facility benefiting all residents of the county and surrounding communities. Whereas the park was developed and improved in a true cooperative effort with the surrounding cities as stated at its opening in 2001. Whereas the park is the only public equestrian facility in North Utah County and represents a limited area of available public open space and multi-use trail network. And whereas input regarding the future use and maintenance of the park requires public input and consideration. Therefore, the American Fork City Council resolved to give support for the preservation and continued operation of the North Utah County Equestrian Park to be maintained and to be open to the public without additional private, commercial, or residential development. Furthermore, the council requests Utah County continue the cooperative agreement that made the park possible and facilitate discussion and negotiation with local municipalities to enable the continued use of the 37-acre park, including all open space and trails available to the public. One might drive by this area, and if you drive up in there, you don't appreciate it fully unless you actually walk it. This is one of the more pristine areas around, and one might think of a park as something that just is grass. This one has an open space feel to it, similar to that you're in the canyon, at least in the foothills. There are resident deer. This is a wildlife corridor, and it's a beautiful place. I've been concerned that there's been maybe what I think is a little bit of a fracturing of the equestrian community where one thinks that in order to facilitate and keep the equestrian park open, that commercial development is needed. And I'm hoping that as we consider this resolution, that the county will be open to talk with us and negotiate and to see how we can move forward. And now I think it's important to observe as well, this does not have any pledging funds associated with it. The city did participate in an RFP and made a pledge of $10, and we are, I believe, we're at the table with the county, had some touch points with the commissioners, but seeing the recent action on this, I felt like the city, it was important for us to make a stand on this. And so I'm opening this up to comments now for anybody of the council, and followed when appropriate a motion.
I'm sure like many of you, you've received many emails regarding this and calls, and they've all been unanimous in their plea for us to preserve this. I love that we do what we're doing. Like Mark Allen said, I think it leads out. In the end, it's nothing more than a show of support. But I think that's critical right now, going forward. And so I know there'll be additional discussion, but Mayor, I'd move to approve the resolution in support of the preservation and continued operation of the North Utah County Equestrian Park.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor.
And I'm happy to second that one.
Okay. I have a second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any further discussion?
Only discussion. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead,
All I
Councilmember
was
Shelton.
gonna
and
do is-
then- Go ahead, Councilmember Carroll, sorry.
I'm sorry, I
No,
must be off of it. All I was going to do was to add my support to this, and I appreciated what Mayor Frost said. From many of the emails that I have received, I almost think people are getting the impression that the equestrian park is owned by American Fork, at least partly, which is not true.
Right.
So this is our formal support to the county to consider keeping open space, and that's what we as a city desire. And I am 100% behind that aspect.
Councilmember Shelton, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just 3 quick points I wanted to make on this. One, I felt a little behind on this subject. I started getting emails and didn't feel like I had a lot of information. I just think as we go forward, it'd be helpful to have that information. Didn't know an RFP was done and that we had submitted that. And so I found myself searching social media as well as reaching out to staff to try to get as much info on this as possible. I did reach out to different elected officials on this to try to get a handle on some of the comments that were out there. And I think that's part of the confusion is that we put a proposal in. And so what that proposal looked like, it'd just be helpful to have that clarity, maybe in future reports or things of that nature, helping us understand what we're doing. I think as we put in an RFP, it kind of shows a front from the city, and it'd be helpful to maybe have that discussion at the council level. Part of that second point is, they're talking about a recreation facility that's looking to be developed on this. Immediately my thought went back to the study we had done with our fitness center, saying that we maybe would have better use of that facility by pushing it further north and joining with other communities. I found that to be, I talked with Highland City, and they found that to be an interesting study and would love to engage further in discussions. I think that's something to perhaps look at. I know that we talked about maybe looking with other communities, the pass of all passes. So I appreciate Mark Allen's comments that, great idea of a recreation facility that I think is different that doesn't compete with ours, but maybe it could enhance it, and that maybe a different place to locate that would be available. I know that Highland City was very kind in talking with me, at least, about being more collaborative and seeing what we could try to do to preserve this. And I love that furthermore, that we look to facilitate those discussions. The only heartburn I had with the resolution is where it says we give support for preservation and continued operation. I didn't know if that maybe would come across as continued operation, as our support would be financial, but I was, I guess, enjoyed the next paragraph down where it says facilitate those discussions. So I feel like that resolves it. And hopefully we can have a very collaborative effort on the discussions of what to do at that equestrian center.
Okay.
Just on a personal note, I was raised many years ago back in Ohio and talked about the area where I grew up and how beautiful it was and the trails and things that was across the street from the park. And several people said, oh, I'm sure that's changed by now. And it was nice to go back a couple of years ago, and it has been preserved, and it's been there for generation upon generation. And it takes foresight to do this.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second on this resolution, and I will call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 10 is review and action on a resolution Oh, excuse me, that is number 11. Review and action on an ordinance creating chapter 5.44 of the American Fork City Code establishing business license regulations for massage therapy practices. Sherilyn, I'm going to call upon you to maybe just lead us through some of this. At least anything that you see as a noteworthy change.
I can do my best. So I spoke with Chief in our discussions. It came to light that unlike some other municipalities, we did not have a specific regulation with regard to massage parlors or massage therapy businesses. And so we went through and essentially created that ordinance. Pretty simplistic. Requires them to have a license, requires them to be state licensed. But the biggest piece of this, at least in my opinion, would be sections 5.44.030 and 040, that they're going to be required to provide their license numbers, their DOPL license number for each employee. They will have to provide any time there's a change of information. So if they have a new employee, they have to provide that updated information. And I believe that what Venlin has on the screen is different than what you received in your packets. Because we also are, as part of 030, we included a provision that requires that they provide the name of all employees, not just the employees providing the massage services. And if I could just confirm that that is what you guys have in your packets, that is what we're requesting to be approved, that they are required to provide legal identification for each and every employee.
It says in the packet is exactly the same as what's on the screen in the way I can,
I think so too.
yeah, it's exactly the same.
Sherilyn, are you saying that a receptionist would need to be provided their information?
Correct.
Because I don't read that as it currently is.
Okay, I'm not sure. That did not get updated. That was modified. David, by chance, do you have the updated, or perhaps Tara Lynn, that we could send to Venlin to pull up on the screen?
And maybe if, as we're doing that, is it okay to just give a few comments on maybe some other sections?
Yeah.
I had two items on this one, and maybe just give you a perspective where I'm coming from. In my line of work, I have way too many professional licenses I have to have, and I'm regulated by the state, the feds, and Florida just came out where every county now regulates financial advisors. And so I feel like you have to employ a full-time person just to keep you in compliance with every municipality that you're in there doing business with. I can't write a thank you card to a client without having a third party review that and okaying it, which is crazy. So I come from a very heavy regulated industry. So I looked at this and I thought, okay, I know what we're trying to do and what we're trying to stop, but are the people that are engaging in the negative or bad activity, are they really going to not do it because we're going to require every person to be licensed? If a receptionist turnover, you got to go down with the city and refile everything again. I just thought, I'm trying to balance that between the good businesses that are out there and the regulatory overhead that would be provided. I don't know if having the name of every individual and having to have them go down there, if that's even something that would come across someone's mind. It wouldn't come across my mind that I changed a receptionist that's not licensed at all and they need to have their identification updated down at City Hall.
And I think I would defer to Chief on this a bit, but the concern is not knowing whether or not these individuals are providing the services or not, right? So if there's somebody in that massage business that if an officer goes in, it's simple to say, well, they don't provide services, but we still don't have identification for who that individual is. But again, I'm going to defer to Chief a little bit. He can probably give a little bit more explanation as to why this is important for our police department.
Yeah, the biggest thing is the human trafficking case we just did. They frequently hide those responsible for carrying out the human trafficking by pretending to be workers in other parts of the business. And so what other jurisdictions have found is that by having people come in and make sure who they say they are, that you reduce the chances of them avoiding their culpability for their behavior. But the other thing that they do frequently in these operations is they move these girls around from state to state so that law enforcement can never get a handle on who they are. And simply requiring them to come in and let us know who's working there will have a significant deterrent effect on them engaging in that activity in our city. In a lot of places, we go into these facilities and you assume that they're licensed, but most people don't take the time to check. You could have somebody pretending to be a receptionist who in reality is carrying out their massages and everything else. So this just keeps everybody honest, and it helps protect our citizens to know that they are following state guidelines. And then it gives us a mechanism to come back in and revoke the business license and or take action if they are found violating that.
I guess I just take a look at it. If they're engaging in human trafficking, I don't know if that's just going to stop them. I mean, they're already breaking the law. What's going to stop them from saying, well, we've had high turnover or whatever that may be. I mean, there's already deceit that's labeled in there. So that's just the one concern that I had. The other section that I had a concern with is section 5.44.050, letter A, about the alcohol use. I understand what we're trying to do there. And obviously we want to keep people, when they're getting massages, to keep their full, mental capacity and things of that nature. I guess, would a massage therapist be able to perform their services at a home?
Yes.
So my concern is, husband has a beer in the fridge. According to item A, it says they can't store alcohol on the premises. Or when they're not giving massages and they're enjoying, a hard day at work, they come home and have a beer. There's no customers there. It's not being served to customers, but we don't describe that. So I'd rather have the alcohol provision particularly be tied to the services being provided, not necessarily where it's being stored.
And I think if that's the concern, then perhaps eliminate just the word store. And it's unlawful to serve, allowed to be served, or allowed to be consumed any alcoholic beverage on the licensed premises.
Well, it says, or allowed to be consumed. I mean, it needs to be in connection with the services, right? Otherwise, they can't consume the alcohol on the premises. So it just needs to be in connection with the massage services you're providing.
Well, the difficulty is, what if they're not? So I know what you're saying with regard to home business, but if you're talking about a massage establishment, what if they're not providing massage services, but rather simply providing the alcoholic beverage? It's still, if they're not in the act of providing the massage service at that time, I guess that's perhaps maybe we would put in language that consumed alcoholic beverages on the licensed premises of a massage establishment during business hours.
Or to clients. They can't do it to clients. That I think would solve it, right? I mean, it just can't be done in connection with whatever. I don't know. Just a thought that I had, just because I know some licensed massage therapists that do this from home, and I ran this by them, and it is a big requirement for them all of a sudden. If you think in each of our businesses having to go down to City Hall every time to put down identification of a new employee, plus some of these things, and one of them, has a husband that enjoys to engage in a beer after work. And, I know that we say that our police officers, and I talked to the chief about this, obviously we wouldn't enforce that, but I'd rather have that in the code being clear versus just relying upon an officer being able to be reasonable on that subject.
The problem that you have is you walk in and they're sitting there, all they got to do is claim, oh, we're just talking. It creates a real enforcement problem trying to determine when do they cross the line to where they're just a group of friends sitting around drinking versus when are they engaged in part of the business. So you always, it's like speeding or anything else. There has to be the discretion there that we're not going to go in there if the evidence suggests that they're having a beer in their own home versus incorporating it into the business. I don't think you can write that into the code without creating enforcement problems.
I think, just like with speeding, we say very clearly it's 25 miles an hour, right? Or 30 miles an hour. And you know exactly where that line is. And I think that's the line that I'm looking to establish here is it's involved with the services being provided. So just some feedback from the industry as I tried really quickly to grab a little bit from them.
Okay. And these are all good points. I just would say, if there's any other items or if there's similar thinking, we can drill down on the wording a little bit. If it's a concern with all the council, I can see it. I do think there is the discretionary part of a good officer that will just read through that and see it. But anybody else have any comments or thoughts to this specific, item or even anything else in this?
If there were some language that we could add that could make some clarification on the alcohol issue, I would like that. I think most people, if they're good business people and they're having a business in their home, they would want to be following the law.
I agree. I think maybe a subtle tweak on we pull out the store, and maybe get it a bit more specific. I always worry the more detail we get into this, because in my mind, sometimes it doesn't solve the problem. Sometimes it creates a bigger loophole or angle to get around something. But I think, as Cheryl Lynn said, if we were to pull store, unlawful to serve, allow to be served, or allow to be consumed during business hours, any alcoholic beverage, something like that would work for me.
Or even to include alcoholic beverage on licensed premises of the massage establishment while clients are present.
Sure. And then before Kevin does it, because, I give him such a bad time, I'd like to make note that on now therefore, the final now therefore, we have American For, not American Fork. So I wanted to make sure I get that before Kevin does.
I missed it. I'm not even sure what you're doing, but good for you.
The one thing, so if Mendeley, if you can scroll down to the application section. So this is the language that should have been modified, that includes the name of the business owner and each employee and a copy of legal identification, driver's license, passport, or other identification acceptable to the city. I understand Councilmember Shelton's concerns. If that's a concern of all council, perhaps that piece, the identification of the receptionists, if they're not licensed massage therapists, that could be taken out there. I would encourage you to listen to Chief Falslev and some of his concerns as to why they're looking for that language there.
I understand where you're coming from on that, Rob. I do, but I maybe it's the heightened awareness of the situation that's around us. Not only that's recently happened, but it seems to be in the news quite a bit about trafficking. If I am a legitimate massage therapist and I open up a retail, or a storefront opening, I am more than willing to show my legitimacy by doing this and by complying with this. I just, just too much bizarre, terrible stuff going on. And so while I appreciate what you're saying and it being inconvenient, it may be the price of doing business. And so I would be in favor of leaving that in. I don't want to see that come out very bad, or at all, actually.
And I would totally agree with you there, Clark. If I had the confidence that people that were engaging in that kind of legal activity would actually go down and register people. But I just think that if they're engaging in that activity and they're moving people around anyway, they're not going to go down and register people. So I don't know. I just don't have that belief that, if they're breaking federal laws and felonies, that they're going to adhere to a city saying, you got to come down and give us the name of everybody, right? So
Doesn't it just give us a little bit more teeth though?
I understand, but still, that's no reason to take it out, in my opinion.
If I could just add one part to that, I guess that's part of why we're looking for identification, not just a list of names, but to have a copy of a driver's license, a passport, or something that officers could actually just walk into those businesses, those establishments, and if they see an individual that they don't recognize as being a registered employee, that would be something that they could utilize in an investigation.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's kind of part of what I think Chief was saying, is if they don't do that, then they have that as
just one more tool.
Yeah. And for me, if you're not going to require every employee there for the intent that we're trying to get at, I'm not sure that even seeing only the massage therapist identification would get us to the goal at all.
I concur.
If council is inclined to move to approve this, I would just ask that the motion be amended to include the amended identification requirement in section 5.44.030.
Mayor, I'd move to adopt an ordinance creating chapter 5.44 of the city code establishing business license regulation for massage therapy practices, and to include the new wording presented in, we just bounced off of the 5 point. We moved up. I've got the motion. I just need the exact.
5.44.030.
Yes, that 5.44.030 section of the ordinance.
And also the 5.44050A for the alcohol, if you want to make a change there.
Right, correct. Good point. And also in section 5.44.050, in regards to alcohol, the wording discussed, remove store, and and as well as within business hours or with clients present. Wording.
Okay. All right, thank you. We got a motion by Councilmember Taylor.
I'll
second.
Second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Okay, item number 12 is consideration and action to enter into a closed session to discuss items described in Utah State Code 52-4-204 and 52-4-205. Do I have a motion to enter a closed session?
I'll make that motion, enter into closed session.
Motion by Councilmember Shelton,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. And I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, we would invite in this closed session, I guess, Scott Simpson Bauer is going to join us now. For those that are watching this, the intent is that the city council will now move into closed session, and we will emerge back on this same YouTube channel, and we will end our regular session of the city council. So we will be back.
Council, give us just a second to open up this other link. So we'll be on shortly.
Barbara?
I'm coming. I have to give myself a shot at 9 o'clock.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's done. Now I just need the other link. Sorry.
No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure if you needed anything.
Yeah, come and resuscitate me.
Yeah, right.
How do I get back to my email to find the link?
Yeah, you should be able to see it down at the bottom of the screen there. You can go ahead and close out of this one because you'll be needing to log back into it.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to see your email.
Okay, leave meeting.
Yes.
Hey, guys, I'm in.
Thank you.
Hey,
See you later.
they'll make
Thanks,
you
Finley.
host. Thank you, George.
Okay, have a good night.
You too. You're the host now.
Well done.
Good night, George.
Good night.
Clark, I like the changing of the setting with the meetings. It's kind of nice.
I try to just bring a little variety to the, just besides raw ugly opinion. I try to, bring a little change of scenery.
Need to be,
FYI, I think we are already recording, just so you're aware.
I think that you ought to do like the Starship Enterprise on the bridge and just have the different DEF CON levels as we move through topics,
I can certainly, I have several that I can choose from, that's for sure. This one is probably the most appropriate for me.
Gotcha.
According to who? Sorry, Clark. I
That's
couldn't
right on,
resist.
no, Kev. Right on, brother.
All right, let's give Barbara a minute. Just to jump back on if not, if she's.
I was having trouble because it kept trying to get me back into the closed session meeting. So maybe she's having something like that.
Maybe she just was done.
Maybe she just said heck with all of you. Yeah.
And you know what, we'll give her about 30 seconds.
I mean, literally all we're doing is moving to adjourn.
Yeah, I just don't want to rob her of making a motion. So,
Mayor, part of the reason I asked,
there she comes. See, we're just
part of the reason I asked for the opposed vote is because I can't tell who's actually voting when everybody votes at once and I'm also talking. So,
Okay, we're back to our regular session.
hello, Barbara.
Hello,
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Okay, Councilmember Christiansen, do I have a second?
I'll second.
That's perfect, Barbara.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you on Thursday.
Good night to
night.
all.